So, Daniela, welcome. We are delighted to have you with us. And just so you know, that after Daniela shares her story, we will have David Kuttner with us. Some of you already know that he is a founder and partner at Lamson and Kuttner to give us some of the practical legal considerations that we need to think about so that we don't end up in this situation. So, Daniela, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm going to turn this over to you.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you for allowing me to join you today and tell you a cautionary tale, my tale. So, it's a story fitting for a bad Lifetime movie, and we still do not know how the movie will end. So perhaps within our time together today, we might find a clue or some answers. Are you all up for that? I sure hope so. I can't see faces, so I'm assuming everyone's like nodding.
And feel free to add comments in the chat for anybody who would like to do that.
So anyway, I mean, no one thinks bad things are going to happen to their family. No one thinks financial abuse is going to happen to them until it does. And usually, by the time the abuse hits, you're elderly and you can't do anything. So this is what happened to my family. And before I delve into my tale, let's start by identifying what exactly is elderly financial abuse. Number one, it is insidious and it is the most common form of elder abuse. And I'm just coming out of grad school studying for my Master's of Social Work. And so some of this learning I literally just learned with some statistics that I've thrown in that I got from class. So this is fresh off the school bus. So anyway, so consider elder abuse kind of like a cancer, how it insidiously grows, and you only learn about it when it's too late at stage 4. A doctor could not have seen the cancer any sooner, nor could you. That's when we know elderly financial abuse reveals itself. So you are at death's door and you're realizing the betrayal of a loved one. Right when you're end of life, you want to go out thinking life is wonderful, and you suddenly the pillow is coming down on your face and suffocating you until life leaves you. And that last face you see is an abuser that you never thought would ever do this to you. And I'm not talking about actually murdering you, but it's kind of like how this insidious, nefarious nature of elderly financial abuse operates. And then your other loved ones are left forever wondering how your wishes and legacy gifts to them were never honored. So this type of abuse is perpetuated through deception, manipulation, and coercion, and is committed by a person the victim knows, loves, and trusts. It is estimated that 1 in 10 adults over the age of 60 is a victim. But but the truth is, we don't know for certain how many older adults are suffering from abuse. A lot of the cases go underreported and underdetected. So elderly financial abuse is committed by a person known to a victim. Now there's elderly financial fraud that's committed by a stranger. So these strangers are kind of what we all hear about, that are scamming elderly people. They're calling up on the telephone and saying, send me some money because your bad things are going to happen to you if you don't. We know those. They're technically not strangers. They're just scammers. The FBI knows those types and can easily prosecute those. But the person who's the criminal in the home, in the family unit, the FBI kind of sees it as more as a civil situation, just family fighting. But it's because the person got a hold of the power of attorney over a victim in a shady, slimy, sneaky, covert way that other family members were not aware of. So that's how my brother has gotten to be my mother's power of attorney. My mother's son looks like the doting son. He is her power of attorney. Should you meet him, you would find him charming, a good Christian, you might say. He religiously attends church on Sundays with his much younger wife and their two little ones. But here, but wasn't Ted Bundy, are you all familiar with the serial killer Ted Bundy? Wasn't he attractive, charming? Didn't he have a girlfriend, right, a little one? So when people say to me, "Oh, your brother, he's so charming. How could he be doing anything bad?" I say, "Well, cuddle up to Ted Bundy for a night and see how you feel the next day." Okay, my days have not been fun. So in my days working in investigative journalism on TV shows like Inside Edition, Current Affair, Geraldo at Large, heard of any of those shows way back? They're all kind of off the air except Inside Edition. But I made the rounds in the cable news circuit from CNN to Fox News, so I know all the media players. Um, but in all the stories we covered, it was always the ones who hid behind a charming facade and a religious calling who committed the insidious crimes. So it was Ted Bundy who got away with his crimes. He operated under a false facade of psychological safety. He made you feel safe, so he lured you in. And then, of course, you find out too late there was nothing safe about him. So this is kind of how elderly financial abuse also works. Not by serial murder or actual killing of someone physically, but it's what I call soul murder. It is a betrayal in trust that goes so deep it can break a mother's heart and it can cripple a person, a parent, into a denial of deceit. So my mother fell into a deep, deep denial when it was made public in the crime section of our local newspaper that her son was incarcerated and club fed for bank fraud. By the time I knew my brother was a criminal, I learned about it because my friends said, read the newspaper. And I'm like, what? And my brother was already 3 months in serving his jail time. I had no idea any of this was going on. So the newspaper, so all I know is what happened is what I read in the newspaper. It said my brother led a conspiracy, and what the newspaper headlined as a brainwashing religious real estate scam. So in a recent mental health book I read, it claimed that denial is the face of obvious problems. Obviously, there were problems here. And denials kind of suggests a significant cognitive problem in the person who's having denial. I say this was the triggering event of an early stages of my mother's dementia. And dementia, and those with dementia are the most at risk of elderly financial abuse. So how's that for an opening scene to a bad Lifetime movie? So both elderly financial fraud and elderly financial abuse are housed under the same umbrella, and the term is financial exploitation. And those words are sort of interchangeable, but the actual wording, we say financial exploitation, but financial fraud are the scammers on the phone. Financial abuse is the person at home committing this crime. But under this umbrella, the crime is an unlawful and wrongful use of an elder's finances, assets, and or their physical possessions. And it can be a 5-year incarceration criminal time. I think someone's raised their hand, but we can maybe do questions
I
at the
think it's a
end.
thumbs up, Daniela. So they're like, yay.
Okay, that was a yay. Okay. I got that right, correct? Because that's based on a paper I wrote and trying to clarify, all these different types of abuses and types of things. So anyway, the estimated cost, it's about $2.9 billion is lost annually to financial exploitation as a whole. yet not enough laws are in place, nor is there enough awareness to protect what is an increasing older adult population. So as a result that there are not laws and there's not enough awareness in place, these cases are going to continue to surface, and there's not going to be enough experts or police educated or FBI educated or adult protective services educated to spot this and stop it in the home. And I've had an experience with adult protective services. I'll get to that later. So my story, I felt, is not an isolated case. The more I spoke about it with friends, they kept kind of saying to me, "Oh my God, that happened to a friend of mine," or "That happened to me." And so I started to realize there's an issue here. There's a problem because my family member, not in a million years would I think he would ever be this sneaky and this and turn into a criminal. We're not a family of criminals. It's but it's usually comes out of families that are dysfunctional. Single mom, check, that's us. Deadbeat dad, check. Dad abandoned us, check. My brother had no guidance, check. All of the dysfunctional things that led him down this bad path. I do not blame my brother for where he's ended up. It's just a tragic story. But he got a hold of my mother's power of attorney very secretly, and he layered it in a crime so it's covered up. So now protective services are like, but it looks like your mom agreed to this over a period of time. And I'm like, well, this is how they operate. They start one thing, two thing, and so it's built in, and it's very, very difficult to prosecute. So, but what happens is the perpetrators of elderly abuse, they use personal relationships to gain control of the victim's property or assets, which is he's gotten control of all of my mother's estate, which is about 15 acres of land, through having this power of attorney. They also go after joint tenancy on bank accounts and other means. And I felt that when he spent his time in Club Fed, it would be a learning lesson. You learn not to commit crimes, that you would come out and be a good citizen. But then he does this. So what I have found out is the FBI can easily handle financial fraud because it affects the masses. But financial abuse is so personal, it affects individual families that they tend to brush you off as a civil case. Oh, that's just a sibling feud. They're just fighting over money. And I'm like, well, my brother owes $1 million back to the United States government. Do you not think that's a motive to acquire my mother's estate? I don't know. So anyway, the National Center on Elder Abuse estimated that approximately 60 to 70% of elder abuse cases are perpetuated by family members. So this is seriously hitting a lot of families, and not all families are lovey-dovey. Not all families are healthy. And so the innocent members like myself, there's no one protecting me from my mother from my brother's criminal activities. So what we found is the typical victim is actually a female widower who's just lost her husband and also cognitively impaired. I found a expert, an attorney named Paul Greenwood. He has prosecuted more than 400 felony cases of elder and dependent abuse, both physical and financial, and he nails the predominant perpetrator as the convicted felon son. And still, adult protective services are looking at me like, it's just a civil thing. I'm like, do you not know the statistics, the facts? I have a convicted felon brother who has tricked my mother somehow into taking control of her assets. So Mr. Greenwood, this attorney, It turns out he's a criminal justice at-large board member of the National Adult Protective Services Association. We all need to know this man. He is on LinkedIn, and I find him a hero.
And
And his
Daniela, I'm
test.
going to interrupt you for a second because after this, if you
I'm
make sure we get that information, we will share that back
sure.
out with everybody on this call. So
I'm
yeah, we'll make sure that everybody gets that information.
Well, he has testified before the U.S. Senate Committee on Aging, expert witness regarding red flags of undue influence by which perpetrators exploit. So anyway, so under what circumstances, and I pose this out to everyone in the audience, you can quickly chime in on the chat to say what circumstances would you sign over your entire well-being to a power of attorney who has a criminal record for bank fraud and owes $1 million to the United States government in restitution for that crime? Is there anybody who would do that? Anybody? So in wrapping this up here, what do we know? We know that a perpetrator of elderly financial abuse is someone the person knows, that you know, trust, and love. And biologically, a mother will still love a son no matter the crime he may commit. She will cover his crime up. That's just Mother Nature. And I don't blame my mother for having to go. She's just trying to make the best of a horrible situation. So we also know that people with dementia are really at risk, and we really need to have some protective measures up there. So if an older person agrees to a power of attorney, we may, we need to look, is this power of attorney stripping them of their assets? Are they cognitively impaired? Are they confused? Do they have memory lapses? All of that. Or are they possibly too embarrassed, shamed? My mother, proud woman, also too shamed. She couldn't tell any of her friends, talk to anybody about it. But I was told by elderly services that a power of attorney is a legal license to steal. And to tell this twisted tale of family betrayal is no short story to tell, but here we are with a long story told short. And I'll kind of leave it here because I think time is of the essence. I can continue to say, that what siblings do, they alienate their other siblings or other family. And that's how they get control of the money, and they do it quietly, secretly, and then again, it's too late. So hence, it's a bad Lifetime movie, and maybe at the end we'll find some answers.
Yeah,
But
well,
I want
thank
to
you.
leave time for the attorney here.
Yeah, so thank you, Daniela. And I think again, you bring across it is grooming. It is
Mhm.
grooming like any other kind of abuse. And it is very difficult for us to want to think about our family members doing it. And yet, when we talk about the money that goes out the door, this is money that may be needed for care for
Mhm.
that person. So it's not just about, oh, they took some of the money. This can have a very real impact on whether or not that aging person can afford the care that they need. Um, and it also may mean that once that person's passed, that the wishes that they had for the estate that they worked for will not be carried out. So with that, we wanted to get some expert legal advice. So I'm going to invite David Kuttner to come on and share a little bit more about how we can potentially put things in place so that we do not need to go through those lawsuits, be a little bit better protected for ourselves. David Kuttner is the founder of Lamson and Kuttner. They are a preeminent elder care law and estate planning firm with offices in New York City and Westchester County. But David also does a lot of speaking and works at the state level, been published many times. And so delighted to have you back with us, David, to get us better educated about how we can protect ourselves and those we love in these kinds of scenarios.
Okay, thank you, Mim, and thank you, Daniela, for that story. It's demoralizing and heartbreaking to see this kind of thing happening. And by the way, in my experience as a lawyer, I'm also a former federal prosecutor, and I spent most of my career as a prosecutor dealing with frauds. So I have some experience from that side too. The power of attorney, which is the instrument that fraudsters are able to do a lot of harm with, is unfortunately a very important and useful document. And it's particularly important for seniors, elderly population, where there's a risk that their mental capacity will diminish because they need someone responsible to manage their own affairs and help them with really important things, particularly their health care. It's often the case. So it's very unfortunate that this document can be abused and is abused by the agents. The document itself requires that the agent act in the principal's best interest. But obviously, there are agents who don't comply with that legal requirement. So it really takes us back, I think, to the choice of the agent and also the responsibility of the attorney who is preparing the document and supervising the signing of the document to be sure that the client understands it, understands what it is he or she is signing, and is making a competent choice regarding the agent who he or she is appointing. So a couple of things that can be done here is think about having a co-agent and requiring that agents act jointly. It makes things a little bit more cumbersome, I know, but if there is the kind of risk that we're talking about here today, a co-agent might be a good idea. The co-agent could be a financial institution or other professional who presumably is going to be a bit more cautious about withdrawals and transfers of ownership of money.
So can I ask a question, David, about that? So it could be if you have a trusted financial advisor, somebody that's been with you for a long time and a family member, or your trusted family attorney that you may have had, and those are some examples that you would recommend?
Yes, exactly. We have clients who've appointed their financial advisors or daily money managers as co-agents, or even the only agent. We've seen that in many cases, and I think you can all see from Daniela's story that it comes down to the agent. And unfortunately, as I said, the power of attorney is such an important and useful document. People who don't have powers of attorney often wind up in guardianship. And guardianship proceedings are no fun. They're expensive. They very often even exhaust the assets of the alleged incapacitated person just from the cost of the proceeding, with the court fees, the legal fees, the expert witnesses, and so on. Before you know it, you've spent all the person's money trying to determine whether he or she is incapacitated. So I'm really not keen on guardianship. I think, as I said, the power of attorney is such a useful thing. So other things that can be done, I think, is make appropriate arrangements with your financial institutions. Ask your credit card companies to send a notice when your card is being used, when the card is not present, for example. I mean, I get these notices all the time from American Express. Your card was used for this charge, and you were not present. And that notice could also be given to other family members. Think about making sure you have a strong password. Sign up for two-factor authentication for access to your accounts. Maybe even advise financial institutions regarding persons who should not be allowed access to your accounts. So I think, there are some kind of proactive things that might be done to help avoid this problem. But unfortunately, I think in the document itself, it's very difficult, maybe impossible, to draft a document that is foolproof regarding the integrity of the agent or the trustee or whoever is in charge. So I think we have to kind of work around it by thinking about co-agents and who they might be and taking other protections with financial institutions. And then, and I don't know whether you want me to get into this today, Mim, but there's a lot more you can do with your documents on the estate planning side. And that's where the language of the documents can be beefed up, if that's the right way to put it.
A little bit more safeguarding, like within the languaging there, to make sure that your wishes or your loved ones' wishes are carried out. If that
carried out, and also how your estate plan is designed. When we're relying on a will to be a last will and testament to be the document that expresses our wishes and the distribution of our estate, we are opening the possibility to family members, even remote relatives, to come in and make objections, to demand discovery, to hold things up, cause a lot of delay and expense. It's just the way the probate and administration of estates is handled and needs to be handled. So we can look for alternative means of handling our estate, a trust, for example, beneficiary designations on accounts. So these are the kinds of things that we can think about doing. Red flags that I can tell you about is, did you read your will or your trust? It's sort of astonishing to me how often we see clients who really never even read the documents that they signed. Wow. Did you understand your trust or your will?
I think part of that, David, gets to what you're saying. Legalese can feel very off-putting, and it's in this busy over information world that we are in and constantly getting inundated, but it gets to why you want to pause and why you want to talk to a professional. If you don't understand that language, it is imperative that you get to somebody who not only is an attorney, but somebody who can actually explain it to you. And this is really the difference in terms of the kind of legal support that you get. So, the answer is, I know we're a little bit over time, and I think we need to have a whole separate conversation just about that piece of it. I'd encourage anybody on this call. We do have a YouTube channel. We did a conversation a little bit about the differences between wills and trusts. So please feel free. That's free. You have free access to that. One other thing that we've brought up, it's been brought up in the past, and I just had a private conversation with this recently. As you get older, it's freezing your access to like credit reporting agencies. This is another way to protect yourself. At a certain age, you're probably not going to apply for a new credit card or a new car, or whatever those things are. You can always unfreeze it, but this is one thing that you can do that's fairly easy. So just kind of wanted to throw that out. And, like it or not, during the holiday season, 'tis the season for us, hopefully, to care about each other and be here for each other. But it is also the time when we see an uptick in fraud and in some of these things. So be a little vigilant. We ask you to do that for those that you may be caring for. If you need or have not looked at your documents or want to review, think about doing that at the beginning of the new year to be better protected. And if you're planning for yourself, it is hard to think about your family may not, or a family member not being the right person. But this is about you having control over your wishes, both towards end of life and then after you pass. And so we just so appreciate Daniela's time today. Thank you, Daniela, for sharing your story and some of the great facts, because it is important. It's not just our opinion, it's data. David, as always, thank you for your expertise and for all you do to protect so many people. And we want to thank all of you for joining us today. I think you saw Daniela put in the chat, if you have a story and you want to share, she's working on a series to help educate more folks. So please, if you would consider sharing your story, reach out to her. And we invite you to join us next month, where we will be talking about all the changes in the retirement community space. So it is not the nursing home that you thought of as your great grandmother or whatever stayed 30 years ago. There are a lot of really, really interesting innovations, different kinds of communities. And we sometimes think, oh, I never want to go into one of these places. Well, you might want to get a little bit more information. Some of them are a little bit nicer than you might think they are and very secure. It's not, all or nothing. There are 5-star rated ones and very secure as there are others. So join us if you have questions. And if there are topics that you would like us to cover, please reach out to us. We're happy to bring you the information that hopefully helps you age well and helps your loved ones age well. So again, thank you both. Thank you for everybody that joined us today, and happy holidays. And we wish you the best in 2025.